1, 2, 3, 4.
Good morning, everybody. Hi, everyone. This is Jewish Talk, coming to you live from NASA Community College on 90.3 WHPC, also streaming on the iHeart and iTunes app. This program is archived later on Spreaker.com. So, hi, everybody. In case you don't know, this is Rabbi Pearl. Good morning, Jonathan Wolf and Harvey Kipnis. These are the names of the wonderful people who join us each time on our Facebook Live, and also, of course, all the wonderful people listening to us on the radio out there. So good morning, everyone. Let me first tell you about Louis Pushkin. No, I'm just telling you, that's the one of our people just joining us. Let me tell you about what's coming up on this Monday. You see, back on Wednesday, February 10th, 1988, the Rebbe's wife, the Lubavitch Rebbe's wife of 59 years, Rebbetzin Chaya Mushka Schneerson, passed away after a brief illness. So this Monday marks her yahrzeit. She had felt ill the night before and was brought to the hospital, where she requested a glass of water. After reciting the blessing, "Blessed are you by whose words all things come into being," the blessing for water, she returned her soul to her Maker. Good morning, Stephen White. Rebbetzin Chaya Mushka, Rabbi Schneerson's wife, the Rebbe's wife, was an erudite and wise woman. She carried the mantle of her exalted position in a most humble and unpretentious fashion. I myself had the honor of meeting her once when I brought something to their home on President Street. Though she was the wife of a leader revered by hundreds of thousands, almost nothing was known about her until after her passing, when those who knew her felt that they could tell of her life and her personality without violating her jealously guarded privacy. So in the farewell fit for a queen, the procession at her funeral was 15,000 strong, which was led by an official police motorcade, accompanied her to her resting place at the Chabad Cemetery in Queens, New York. There she was interred near her father, the previous Rebbe, Rabbi Yosef Isaac Schneerson. So in the days and months following her passing, the Rebbe spoke frequently of the theme, "And the living shall take to heart," how the passing of a person close to oneself should prompt one to a positive action in the form of lessons derived from that person's life and deeds undertaken to perpetuate his or her memory. So Rebbetzin Chaya Mushka Schneerson of righteous memory led a very intensively private life. Very few people knew about the relationship. It is reported by a lady from London, Mrs. Louise Hager, who knew the Rebbetzin since the 1960s and spoke to her by phone at least once a week. I think that was one of the lengths of strength, the signs of a strength of a relationship, but it was all totally private. So although bits and pieces of her life, of her personal relationship, have now leaked out over the years, the consensus is that it was her will to remain out of the limelight. For many, it was not until her funeral in 1988 that they realized the tremendous bond that she and her husband, the Lubavitcher Rebbe, Rabbi Nachum Mendel Schneerson of righteous memory, shared, and the extraordinary sacrifices she was willingly made to facilitate the Rebbe's devotion to the Jewish people. So the Rebbe led the global Chabad Lubavitch movement, which would become the largest Jewish organization in the world by the end of the 20th century, and inspired an immense infrastructure for Jewish activism in the United States and the world after the Holocaust. Back then, thousands of people back in 1988 who came to escort her the whole funeral down Eastern Parkway shed tears as they watched the Rebbe's raw emotions in the sombering, escorting the body of his wife. In the days that followed, the Rebbe at times choked up in tears as he said the Kaddish, the traditional mourner's prayer, in her memory and during public talks that he gave about her legacy. And of course, the Rebbe urged all of us to take the Rebbetzins' life and actions to heart. And I share this with you because tonight, very special events taking place. I'm inviting everyone to tune into. You see, behind every successful man, there's a successful woman. And behind every Chabad rabbi, there's a very special Chabad Rebbetzin. That's what this weekend is all about. And I'm here to share with you that thousands of Chabad Rebbetzins, Shluchos, emissaries from around the world have gathered in Brooklyn this weekend for their annual convention, which takes place close to the day that we commemorate the passing of the wife of the Lubavitcher Rebbe of blessed memory, as I said, who passed away on the 22nd day of Shvat, 1988, which coincides with this Monday. I'm happy to share with you, we're honored that my own dear wife, Bluma Pearl, our co-director of Chabad of Mineola, is attending as well. Now, this convention culminates this evening with a gala banquet where there's more than 3,000 incredible women who will afterwards return to their posts around the world to continue bringing the joys of Judaism to their communities. And I'd invite everyone today, make a note of this, that there will be a live broadcast of this gala banquet that will be available on our website this evening on Sunday, January 27th at 5:30 p.m. Eastern Time. Just go to our webpage, chabadmineola.com/kinus, Kinus, and you can watch it live and really be inspired how the women, the leaders of this world, are right there. Please enjoy. I want to, first of all, say again, welcome to everyone joining us, to Jean, who's with us once again, and hello to Brian Allen. That's why, thank you so much, Brian Allen. Always gives me some amazing insights. Thank you for joining us. Joanne Sanders calling in. And again, Corey Arnold. Corey, Mazel Tov. Fantastic. Thank you so much. So I want to tell you something that some of you may have read about, but I'd like to share this with you. You see, they say the best things in life are free. Life is filled with simple pleasures, the little satisfying effects that you never really anticipate, but then have a great pleasure in. These are the gifts of life that we each subconsciously celebrate in our own unique way. And today, I'd like to share with you, dear friends, those listening on the radio, and those watching online and watching in Facebook Live, and I'm giving you a big wave out. Shout out, everybody. Thank you so much. This week, I experienced a very simple pleasure, and that is to have dry clothes. And I'm celebrating it. Now, what am I talking about? You see, it all happened this Thursday. I was officiating the funeral service for a dear friend, a member of our Lunch and Learn on Wednesday, an amazing Eishes Chayil, a woman of valor, Lorraine Diamond of Bayside, Queens. She passed away and she was being laid to rest. And we all arrived on this Thursday at 11:15 a.m. at the Wellwood Cemetery here on Long Island. Now, if anybody who was on Long Island that day knows what was going on. The rain was coming down. Kim, I don't know if you were caught in that rain on Thursday. It was pouring and pouring, Kim says, my amazing engineer. Absolutely right. Yes. I was, you can't imagine, it was like a monsoon.
I looked like a drowned rat.
Okay. Well, I'm going to tell you what I looked like. It was a monsoon complete with 50 miles an hour winds. We were not in a car driving, as dangerous as it was. We were in the open cemetery. Well, I was wearing what coat and covered, but nevertheless, I got soaked from the knees down. So what did I do? I was expected at the Winthrop Hospital, NYU Winthrop. They needed me in a hurry, but I couldn't walk in there with wet clothes. So I raced home. And I'm here to tell you, and as I shared with our wonderful Facebook family, you can't imagine that feeling of simply getting into dry trousers, shoes, and socks. And I suddenly had this unbelievable, I shared with my wife, this unbelievable appreciation to Hashem, to the Creator, for blessing me with the pleasure of simply having dry clothes and shoes to wear. By the way, for the sake of transparency, Kim, my shoes were so wet that I immediately filled them with top quality soil, added some seeds, and turned them into a flower planter. Thank you. I'm into the environment.
That's it. Reduce, reuse, recycle, and let it rot.
let it rot. Okay. Oh, my friends, we're having a little fun, but that's what happened. Each day, and I shared with my wife, I called my wife up, I said, Bluma, I'm just enjoying the fact, I'm thanking Hashem, I have dry clothes in the middle of the day to be able to change into. And the truth is, each day that we wake up, my friends, we actually make a blessing. Blessed are you, Hashem, our God, King of the universe, who clothes those who are naked. Just simply, Malbish Rumim in Hebrew, simply thanking Hashem for our clothes. So each morning we acknowledge that, directly or indirectly, is to thank Him for we have clothes to cover our bodies and to protect ourselves from the inclemencies of the weather. Incidentally, this daily reminder also reminds us that we are commanded to actually imitate God, and therefore, when we have the opportunity, we should provide clothing and other basic needs to those who lack the means to take care of themselves. So allow me this morning, and I must give credit to Jonathan Wolf out in New Jersey, who spoke about the deeper side of clothes. So I want to share with you a little bit about you could call it the Kabbalah or the mysticism of clothes. You see, for fashion fans, the Torah features a detailed account of clothes worn by the priests in the Holy Temple. Each garment was metaphysically designed for peak performance, from the gold plate across the forehead down to the bells and the pomegranates at the hem of the robe. Don't ask about the shoes, because the Kohanim served barefoot. And I think, Jonathan Wolf, I think you are a Kohen, if I'm not mistaken. Good morning to Sharon Sontag. Thank you so much. And Candy Rosen has joined us. Gus, thank you so much. Good morning to Renee Jackson, all the way from Florida. And everybody else. So I don't know if Jonathan Wolf is a Kohen, but in the temple, they would not wear shoes. Anyway, we actually have an entire Torah portion, which happens to be my Bar Mitzvah portion. It's all about clothing, about the clothing that the Kohen would wear. And the question is, why do human beings need to wear clothes in the first place anyway? So we all remember the story of Adam and Eve in the Garden of Eden. And they started out, as the Torah called, naked and unabashed. They were not unashamed. But after eating from the tree of knowledge, the Torah tells us they became aware of their nakedness, and the Almighty God made clothes for them. Why the shift? Why this sudden change? Why this reaction? You see, before eating the tree, Adam and Eve saw each other, first and foremost, as souls. They knew the soul is the essence of the human being, with the body serving merely as a protective covering. See, the soul always is covered. It's covered with the body. And the body served as a protective covering. Since Adam and Eve were focused on the spiritual side, they weren't self-conscious about their bodies. However, after eating of the tree, their spiritual level dropped, and their eyes opened, and they started to focus on the body. The body had now become a distraction from the soul, and therefore needed to be covered up. So the cover-up needed another cover-up. The body, which covered over the soul, had to be now covered up, because instead of thinking about the soul, they started thinking about the body. So it needed to be covered up. Therefore, the concept of clothes were born. You see, in the Western world, typically, we relate to others as physical beings. When we characterize someone, we typically describe their physical appearances. He's a tall guy, he's that, he's this, or that. Yet the most important aspect of human being really is the spiritual side. Their talents, their hopes, their dreams, their fears. When you go to a funeral, you don't talk about the person's body, you talk about who they were, what their dreams, what they accomplished in life. So, and we struggle to make that voice be heard. Not to think about the physical, but think about the spiritual. So how do we feel when we're seen only for our outward appearances? We feel cheap, demeaned, and dehumanized. Which is why the Torah is so strict about dignified dress. It is essential that we deflect attention from superficial appearances to enable us to see ourselves as a real person who we really are. Judaism does not ask us to dress in a way that is ugly. Rather, we should not draw undue attention to the body by being flamboyant or provocative. For in fact, that which is more precious is generally hidden, not open, available, and free for all. I want to share with you a famous story, and we're still trying to figure out, let's see. Yes, Jonathan Wolf is a Kohen. Wow. Very nice. Beautiful, beautiful. Thank you so much. And I want to welcome again those who are joining us. I'm taking a look at Dr. Kolshevsky has finally stopped skiing and joined us now this morning. Thank you so much for coming. So here's a little interesting story about clothes. I'm going back now to the one of the earlier Chabad Rebbes. He was called the Marash, Rabbi Shmuel of Lubavitch. And as the custom of the great leaders, or Chabad leaders, they would always spend evenings, nights, receiving those who sought their counsel. In Hebrew, we call it Yechidus. It's a private meeting of souls between the Rebbe and his Chassid. And the Rebbe, indeed, our Rebbe, years and years and years, spent three evenings a week, at least 2, meeting with people one-on-one. So in this case, going back to Reb Shmuel of Lubavitch, scarcely an hour had gone by, meeting, and he was already exhausted. He was so exhausted, he called for a break, and he asked for a fresh change of clothes. So the Rebbe's secretary emerged from the room carrying the clothes, which the Rebbe had removed. And guess what? The clothes that the Rebbe was wearing were drenched in sweat. So the secretary says, Master of Universe, Rabbeinu Shalom, why is he exerting himself so much? Every hour he needs a new change of clothes. Why does the Rebbe sweat so much? The Rebbe's door opened up. Reb Shmuel stood there and he said, don't you understand? In the past hour, 20 people came to see me. Each of them poured out their soul to me and asked for my assistance in curing their spiritual ills. To relate to each one's dilemma, I had to see it through their eyes. So I must divest myself of my own personality and circumstances and clothe myself in theirs. Then, in order to answer them, I must reassume my own persona. Otherwise, why would they come to consult with me? Did you ever attempt to change your clothes 40 times an hour? If such physical dressing and undressing would exhaust you and bathe you in sweat, can you imagine what is involved in doing so in a mental, emotional, and a spiritual sense? That's the story. You see, whoever it was that referred to a human being as the naked ape got it all wrong. Man is the only truly clothed creature. A creature who attires him or herself not only for warmth and protection, but to alter, enhance, even transform their own identity. Indeed, the identities we tailor for ourselves have several notable advantages over the inborn variety. They can improve upon our natural self by accentuating our good features, and by dehumanizing or de-emphasizing or even employing to our advantage our less desirable ones. What's even better is that they're completely removable. If they don't wear well, or if they turn out to have been a mistake in the first place, we can replace those clothes with a different set. And as Jonathan Wolf brought to my attention and reminded me, that in Hasidic teachings, it refers to our faculties of thought, speech, and action as the 3 garments of the soul. The areas in which we choose to direct our thoughts, the things that we say, and the manner in which we say them, and the way we act towards others and ourselves, these are the clothes that really fashion our souls. With these garments, we can project our character, our personality in ways that amplify its positive features, to subdue its negative ones, and even express a negative trait in a positive way. We dress an abstract feeling in the words, I love you. We cover up animosity with civil behavior. We bundle an overblown ego into the urge to become the biggest donor to the charity in the community. And if we find ourselves wearing threadbare ideas or ugly behavior patterns, we remind ourselves that these are just garments. Dump them in the hamper and get yourself, for no better words, a more tasteful wardrobe. Of course, a more basic approach to self-improvement is to improve the body of our soul, its character and personality. But it's a lot easier to buy a nice suit than to go on a diet. Besides, who knows, the sight of your soul in a nice suit might be just the thing to motivate you to get your body into shape. Sounds like hypocrisy. Certainly. But can you imagine a world in which everyone acted better, holier, and more compassionately than they really are? Perhaps what our world needs so badly right now is some more of this hypocrisy. So, my friends, we're discussing clothing, the deeper meaning of clothing, and as you can see, wonderful people are placing their notes on the Facebook posting area. And Jonathan points out that when a person passes away, it's not so much how fancy and beautiful the clothes are. That's why people are laid to rest, not in clothes per se, but in shrouds. Very simple. No pockets. We don't take nothing with us, my friends. And I really want to thank all those who are taking the time to listen to us, and welcome from Little River, South Carolina. Hello, Greta. Thank you so much. And good morning to everybody. This is amazing. I hope I had no idea that people so far away are listening. Anybody on Long Island listening here? I don't know. Everybody I've posting right now is all over the world. Back to our clothes. Is it necessary, my friends? You know, the concept, is it necessary to properly be dressed in privacy of our own home? How about in the bedroom? How about in the bathroom? To answer these questions, I'd like to share with you briefly the foundations of the Jewish concept of what's called tzniut. Tzniut translates modesty. Let me tell you something. Let me give you a background, kind of a perspective. The Torah requires that when a Jewish soldier goes to war, we're talking about way back in biblical times, he was to take along with him a shovel. Is it to dig trenches along the battlefield? Not at all. The Torah required this soldier to take a shovel so that when he relieves himself in the battlefield, he will be able to cover up the waste. Anything less is considered undignified. If there is ever a time when people are not concerned with dignity, it's during battle. Warfare arouses all sorts of animalistic drives, attacking, killing, pillaging, plundering, who knows what. Yet the Torah teaches us that even under those circumstances, we must maintain our dignity. And all the more so under other circumstances. Every aspect of our life, wherever we may be, dignity is what we must have in mind. A human being is created in the image of God. Our behavior should always reflect that godliness within us. We don't leave our image of God outside the bathroom or anywhere else. Right? That behavior should always reflect that we have godliness within us. This does not mean that we should never joke around or have fun, but we should maintain dignity in whatever we do, remembering that the divine presence is everywhere. This does not mean that one dresses and behavior must be the same in all places. Rather, I'm here to share with you, it underlines that the attire and the conduct should be appropriate to uphold our sense of self-respect and self-esteem. You see, we must always be careful to dress in a dignified manner. In fact, it is forbidden for a learned person, a scholar, to wear even a stained garment. One should get dressed with dignity, even if there is no one else around, since the Almighty's presence is everywhere. In Kabbalistic literature, in Jewish mysticism, we are warned not to put on two articles of clothing simultaneously. So if your jacket and your coat, your overcoat is all together, put them on one at a time. The Torah generally gives precedence to the right over the left in everything that we do. In Jewish mysticism, the right side represents kindness, while the left is strictness. We always strive to emphasize the kindness, though tempered with discipline. Therefore, with this in mind, when putting on articles of clothing, the right side should be put on first. You put your right arm into your sleeve first. This applies even to left-handed people. And I also want to share with you, there's a concept of kosher clothes. You say, Rabbi, what are you talking about? What do you mean kosher clothes? Everyone knows that we eat kosher food. What is not so well known is that we are to wear kosher clothes. What are kosher clothes? The Torah forbids, I know what people are saying, kosher clothes mean, Rabbi, if you get a nice discount. No, that doesn't make it kosher. The Torah forbids wearing garments that contain a mixture of wool and linen. If you put wool and linen together, it has a special name in Hebrew. It's called shatnez. Shatnez. I want to say again, I'm trying to see who else is joining us here. Well, that's right. Greta is in Mineola, and Jean is in Westbury, and Dorothy Rothstein, how could I forget? She's on Long Island, and right in Merrick. Thank you. And of course, Sybil Triggerbuff, and of course the Kipnesses. You know what? I was getting so carried away with my wet shoes. I've forgotten all the wonderful people who are listening and watching on Long Island. Dear friends, I'm only making a spice and having some fun. I know there's wonderful people out there waving to everybody here. And as they say, I got a great face for radio. So what about Michael Wolf? Michael, what's going on, Michael? How are you feeling today? So what is this shotness all about? What does it mean to have a kosher clothes that forbids us wearing clothes that have a mixture of wool and linen? The Medrash explains to us that the reason stems from the story of Cain and Abel. As recorded in Genesis, Cain brought God an offering of flax. That's the source of linen. Abel brought sheep, wool. The incident resulted, as we know, in Cain killing Abel. And it was thus decreed that never again shall these two substances mix. So, checking the label of clothes is not necessarily sufficient. Since factories, I was once trained in this, you can actually have a woolen jacket, but the threads that they attach the buttons can be made out of linen, not kosher. Since factories will often mix in small amounts of other threads, all clothes that list wool and linen on the label should be taken to there's a certified shotness laboratory. Here in Long Island we have, in the Far Rockaway area, and other people. I used to be in that. I just got too busy for this, but there's actually a laboratory that can check your clothes, particularly foreign suits, Italian suits, and women's clothes as well have this problem. And they are actually checked under a microscope and can be fixed, obviously, if they find typically in the areas that strengthen the collars and the buttons, as I mentioned. So even the smallest amount of shotness is forbidden. For example, if you have a wool suit and the buttons are sewn on with linen thread, it's forbidden to wear the suit until the linen thread is removed. By the way, my friends, I want to know that after that getting soaked this past Thursday, and I ran home and I got this whole lesson of the simple thanking Hashem for having dry clothes, I was so excited I just, grabbed the first pair of shoes out of my closet. So I grabbed a dry pair of shoes at my home and later found out, I guess the Almighty had the last laugh, but I later found out after stepping into the first puddle that my right shoe had a hole in it. And I wore a wet sock for the remainder of that day. And that day was very long because I had to come to the station and have the ongoing meetings that we have at the station. And poor me, I was left with that wet sock for all that time. By the way, my friends, how did the farmer mend his pants? With cabbage patches. All right, my friends, this is your host, Rabbi Pearl. I want to thank you so much. Enjoy. The lesson, of course, is that anything that happens in my life, I go through life, I hear ideas, try to see what can it do, what can I see to help me appreciate my relation to Hashem. And perhaps all of us can do that. We go through life. Thank Hashem for the most simplest of things. Just simply having clothes or helping those to have the simplicity of dry clothes or whatever they may need. This is your host, Rabbi Pearl. Thank you so much for joining us. Have a wonderful week. Sei gesund.